Thanks and welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Nice July summer afternoon. Hope you all had a wonderful 4th of July holiday weekend. We're really happy you're taking time to join us today. This is our 12th call. We're doing these semi-weekly now. Our 12th call to give you updates on how our programs are responding during the pandemic. By now you probably know I'm Peter Keller, head of the EC board, and I'm joined on this call by Patrick Bergquist, our program director, and SK Doyle. You know, we've said this before, and I'll keep repeating it. Our program office continues to work to stay connected to our programs and to give them solutions to all of the challenges and problems that continue to crop up. You know, clearly, as we've said many times, these are unprecedented times, but, you know, connecting programs that offer similar services is one of the great things we can do because we do support about 100 programs. So we help programs share knowledge, you know, on the weekly program directors calls. It's great to hear the exchange of ideas. You know, I continue to be so inspired by the stories I hear. There's just so much imagination and ingenuity out there as our programs and program directors meet and talk to how to meet the needs of all of their clients in a very safe way. You know, there are issues out there about the increased cost of food, the lack of availability of certain food types, and the increased need for supplies. Many of our programs that served hot meals are now having to package food to go. Many of the programs that were choice pantries are now boxing stuff. So it's a different way to operate, and Episcopal Charity's role as a connector is really essential, and it helps shorten the learning curve and helps people work more efficiently. As you all know, throughout our region, while we're reopening, demand continues to be very, very high for outreach services, particularly feeding programs. You know, at the end of July, the additional unemployment supplemental benefits will wrap up, as will the moratorium on evictions. And again, keep in mind, this moratorium on evictions was just a moratorium. It was not rent forgiveness. So evictions have been stalled, but now people face the daunting task of paying 3 or 4 months of rent. This means that we're going to see continuing financial hardship. People that had resources, that had savings, even if they were small, have likely gone through them already. So we think the financial toll will get worse in the months ahead. While many businesses are reopening, they're opening with smaller employee staffs or smaller hours. So those who are hourly workers likely will have, you know, reduced income if they have a job at all. And we think it'll be months before we get back to anything like the pre-pandemic levels. You know, I'm also concerned, you may have, some of you may have seen a note in today's Times about churches, particularly in the West and in the South, where there have been struggles about religious freedom and we have a right to remain open regardless of the health issue. Well, now we're seeing a number of large churches become major sources of coronavirus contagion. And again, I'm just very happy with the way our bishops have handled reopening in the diocese. And again, you may recall that when Bishop Dici sent out his note for July 1st, he said this was the right to reopen, but not the obligation. And a lot of churches are continuing to operate on a virtual level. I'm in upstate New York this week, and it's very interesting. Sunday morning, I drove by, and there's not a lot of tech at some of these smaller rural churches, but there's a Methodist church in Hawleyton, Pennsylvania, that had lawn chairs on the lawn. The minister was speaking from a microphone on the steps of the church, and it looked like a big church picnic with people out. So I just remind everybody out there, continue to be vigilant. This is not going away. You know, you've seen the numbers in the South and the West. It continues to grow, and it's growing because people are failing to use common sense. So, you know, our best defense against this is all of us remaining vigilant. Wear your mask, wash your hands, socially distance. You know, recently our program staff has identified several options to help our food pantries and feeding programs operate more cost effectively. And this is really critical as they face the dual challenge of more people coming and the shortages of food. Patrick is going to share some details on 2 recent initiatives. One is for fresh fruit and vegetables for food pantries within the immediate New York City area. The second is working with New York State. They've got some contracts that provide for discounted purchasing. They've been negotiated by General Services in New York, and Patrick and SK have found that there are ways that our programs can qualify for some of these very, very significant discounts to help their money and the money that we give them go further to meet the needs of their clients. So with that, let me turn it over to Patrick to give you some of the details on these programs. Patrick, it's all yours.
Thanks, Peter. And I just want to highlight what Peter said about what we're expecting coming up at the end of the month and going forward into the fall is that we think need is going to continue to go up. And that's primarily because of the loss of this unemployment benefit and the moratorium that's being taken away at the end of the month for rent. So those people, again, that were just kind of barely holding on, this can be one of those cracks that just kind of pushes them farther and further behind. The other piece that's really going to have an impact on us here is we begin to see comments coming out of the governor's office, from the mayor's office, about how schools are going to open and reopen, and 3 days on, 2 days off. Like, it's a whole mishmash. And so what that does is it has a really significant impact on families, childcare issues, all of that. Nothing like going beyond just the really radical impact it's going to have on kids, which we work with in our YOG programs. But from an economic and health standpoint, this is really going to be a major hit to so many families. And so one of the things that we are trying to do at Episcopal Charities is trying to figure out how we can best leverage every dollar that we get and every dollar that we put out into our programs. We want them to get every single thing they can get out of every single dollar they get. And so we're doing a few things. One is we're trying to leverage our relationships that we have in Episcopal Charities. Because we have a network of about 100 different programs, we get a sense of where there's extra resources and how we can maybe take those and move them to a place that doesn't have the resources that they need. So I was in contact with a program that literally had additional tons of fresh produce. They had been part of a statewide program and they couldn't distribute it all to their program. And so in conversation with them, what was great is to sit down and chat with them over the phone and over in Zoom and say, I have a program in the Bronx, I have a program in Washington Heights that are paying exorbitant amounts of money for very, moderately quality produce, because they're so desperate to get produce into the hands of people that just really can't afford it right now. What was amazing about this experience is I kept getting text messages and emails when deliveries started coming into these two programs. I had a text message from a woman who took pictures of all these bags of fresh produce. And she goes, they were lovingly prepared for us. And we will lovingly pass them on to our community. And they were gone within an hour and a half of when they opened. The other program, they had 200 different households represented in that one distribution on a Friday. And they said every cucumber, head of lettuce, apple, bit of asparagus was gone in 2 hours. And so one of the things we're trying to do is connect our programs to each other so that it's not just Episcopal Charities trying to support them, but they're supporting each other. They are being able to help each other and move forward with each other in a more meaningful and more powerful way than if it was just the program office or the staff of Episcopal Charities trying to do everything. Making those connections is becoming really important. We're also trying to leverage relationships that our programs have with people. I was just on a call yesterday with one of our summer camp leaders who said, now, Patrick, I made a contact with a government official and they want to help you get food into your programs.
Yes.
So I bet we're going to follow up on that. I already have a plan of where we need some help, but so many of our programs, we want them focused on doing the work of their program. We want them being with the kids. We want them making sandwiches and hot meals for their community. If we can take some of that load off by reaching out and talking to these, making these connections for our programs, then that's a great use of our time. That's a great use of our energy that we're going to go and do. The other thing we found out is because we have a little bit of space to do research, to build relationships with people outside of Episcopal Charities, is we found this great little, it's not exactly a loophole, but it's not at all shared, very far. So when the state of New York negotiates contracts with the Office of General Services with refrigerator dealers and computer companies and food distributors, all those kinds of things, when they negotiate that contract, they allow anyone that's a 501c3 above, I think it's like $50,000 a year, can piggyback on to those contracts. And it takes about 20 minutes to fill out a couple of forms to get into this program. This will literally save thousands of dollars for so many of our programs. Not all of our programs can be a part of it because they're not 501c3s. It's not for churches. It's just for 501c3s. But we've already reached out to several of our 501c3 partners, and they're like, we could do what? We could be saving how much? Mm. And they fill out those applications quick. We've sent multiple applications out. Episcopal Charities has also filled one out so that we can potentially go out and do massive purchasing on behalf of our programs. Peter mentioned that it's been hard to get certain kinds of food, certain proteins are really hard, and the prices are going up because the demand, like the amount that they have is lower. And so those costs are going up, and it's becoming cost prohibitive for a lot of our programs to distribute things like proteins, fresh produce, things like rice have become very difficult to get a hold of. Well, Episcopal Charities, if we can go into a distributor, do a bulk buy, get it delivered to places all over into all of our programs, that means a program doesn't have to deal with those logistics. It means that that program doesn't have to worry about costs for that once a month or twice a month, however we can do it. So we're in the process of gaining information from all of our programs. I just looked at our data. We've got 20 plus programs that have already reported in, and a large chunk of those are interested in this bulk buying process. So again, we are all about finding ways of leveraging our time, our relationships, any of those kinds of things. And so this is what we're about. So with that, I'll send it over to Peter, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Patrick. Those are great stories. It's a broken record, but as the challenges that we see are really long-term, and we've said many times, we think they'll last at least through the year. These initiatives are just critical because our programs are going to try to do more and more with scarce dollars and rising needs. So when our staff can find things like the General Services buying program, when we can access fresh fruit and vegetables, we've had an ongoing concern over the last couple of months about the degradation of quality of the food available through our feeding programs. As some normal sources have dried up. So things like the ability to find fresh produce or find meats is really critical. So these are just really examples of how we continue to focus on the needs in our communities, both those that we see right now and also those that we anticipate. Because as we move into the fall, you've got weather issues, you've got housing issues. So we just think that this is going to be a really critical 3 or 4 or 6 months ahead of us. So our staff is working hard. We mentioned before, our COVID-19 Relief Fund continues to receive new grants. We meet every week to review requests and to make recommendations on funding. We last met on Monday of this week, and to date we have funded 34 separate grants totaling over $313,000 to 28 organizations. We continue to ask you if you know of programs, if you know of situations where people are just unable to meet need because of financial constraints, let us know, and we're going to do our best to get dollars out into the field and do the most good that we can do. We're very grateful to all of you who have contributed to our relief fund or our general fund, and we continue to welcome donations. But for many of you that may already find yourself stretched, there are other ways to help out. I've mentioned every week on our website, there's some pretty easily identifiable tabs. Consider being a volunteer at one of our programs. It's a great way to show your support for programs and volunteers who may already be stretched kind of thin. It also is a way to demonstrate solidarity with the people that the programs serve. And so we're always looking for volunteers, and feel free to contact us if you have time and would like to get out in the field. I think you'll find it very inspiring. Masks continue to be a priority, as I mentioned at the outset, with some of the churches being sources of contagion. we need to be really vigilant about wearing masks. We've got programs that simply don't have enough masks, not only for staff, but also to give away to some of their clients. So if you're handy with a sewing machine or a needle and thread, if you get masks to us, we'll make sure we get them out into the field to help people that need them. And again, on our website, www.ec-ny.org, you'll see a big COVID-19 tab, and click on it for other ways you can help. We just are really grateful for your continuing interest in our response to the crisis. So we appreciate your concern and support, and we're here to answer any questions if we can add something right now. And again, remind you, we're doing this every other week, so our next meeting will take place on July 22nd. So SK, do we have any questions in the queue?
I have not seen any questions in the queue yet. Let me just pop over to Facebook and see if there are any there. Does not look like it.
Okay, well, we're 2 minutes past our desired 1:15 time. So thanks for joining us again today. Stay safe. Encourage everybody to just use common sense, and we'll get through this quicker if people adhere to government guidelines. Stay away from big crowds. If you're going to a beach or a public place, distance, and that's our best way to move through this and get back to normal quicker. Till then, thanks for all of your support and all of your interest in what Episcopal Charities is doing.
Thanks so much, everyone.